freedom, financial freedom. You should have the ownership and the right to your own wealth and not have to depend on a third party, a bank, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. Like, no, this is 2025. You can send things through a blockchain for pennies on the dollar and as fast as 12 seconds on Ethereum. And then when you're ready, just block proposed. I think it's great that Ethereum is making big moves to be a little bit more bolder. You know, we're kind of underselling Ethereum quite a bit. So it's always better when we're working together with people who are thinking not just from the protocol, not just from dApps, not just from infrastructure. Everybody sees Ethereum in a slightly different way. And that actually helps a lot. This sort of decentralized governance will allow us to come to better outcomes and just be a truly decentralized protocol. And that way we destroy what we unfortunately built with TradFi 1.0. How long did it take you to learn how to shoot? It should be that easy to interact with Ethereum. That's how quickly we need to be able to onboard people. Well, we might be able to actually make Ethereum more efficient. It's our job at Protocol to make the lives of those builders easier, but we need to get out of this bubble where protocol layer is kind of isolated. Bitcoin was obviously started by cypherpunks. A bunch of us rebellious type people. We're sorely lacking more of those people now. Why are we here? How about the values, the privacy, the decentralization, digital property rights, transparency for the rich, privacy for the rest of us? Yeah. Important things like client diversity. Bitcoin's got us on the narrative, but we are pushing the technology forward.
If you were to rate this move out of 10, what would you give this rating?
I would give it an 11.
Spreading the good word on good work on crypto. My name is Tim. Welcome back to 90 Seconds to Crypto, where we help off-chain Luddites become on-chain sovereigns. Every week here, we share the tools and mindsets to helping you unlock your digital sovereignty. Today, we are in Ontario at a gun range with my good friend here, Phil No, who is a technical project manager with the Ethereum Lodestar consensus client team. And also, he's a former Canadian military service member. We thank you for your service. Phil, would you like to make a brief introduction of yourself?
So my name is Phil No, the technical project manager of the Lodestar consensus client. Been working at ChainSafe since 2021, but my span of crypto experience goes way before that. In 2013, someone sent me Bitcoin. It was around the time of the Mt. Gox hack, and that's when I slowly got into that rabbit hole, which I'm sure many of you will eventually fall into, and then started learning about Ethereum in 2015 and been following it ever since. That is pretty much my journey in. I've dabbled around crypto for a little more than the last decade. Now I'm here helping to contribute to the development of the Ethereum protocol. Very happy to be here with my man, Tim.
Damn, and we're about to pull some trigger on some Ethereum knowledge while we're shooting some guns. So let's get it. Phil, we are now here at the gun range. We have our rifle all set up.
Yep.
So I wanted to ask you some questions, if I may.
Of course.
Ethereum recently successfully activated the Pectra upgrade. Yes. And obviously, everyone's talking about EIP 7702, user experience, all of that stuff. So I wanted to say congratulations to all of the client teams, including yourself. I wanted to ask, what do you think people are still missing about the Pectra upgrade?
I think with the Pectra upgrade, there's two beneficiaries to it. So the first one being stakers. As a staker, you can actually have more than 32 ETH as part of a validator. And the problem before was it was capped at 32 ETH. So what that means is if you had anything in excess of that, it would just kind of be sitting there. It wouldn't actually be compounding and making additional interest for you. You voted with the number of validators, not necessarily with the balance of Ether that you had. So now with compounding, you can actually have larger than 32 ETH validators, which means you can use all of that ETH and actually stake it together and actually generate a better return on investment for yourself as a staker. better. So now for somebody who is building stuff, let's say like a builder of a dApp, they need to figure out how to deal with a lot of the problems that we have when it comes to account abstraction. So now with 7702, what it basically does is instead of having an externally owned account, which you traditionally would have with your 24-word mnemonic, now you can turn this account into a smart contract. So it's like kind of like having a smart scope almost that will tell you exactly what you need to do, which is not really the case most of the time. Got to know what you're doing.
Way to tie in our activity today with questions and answers.
Yeah. This on its own is kind of dumb, but this, if it has like a properly programmed, properly zeroed, properly scoped, has the ability to do a lot more than necessarily what you could do without the scope. So being able to actually turn an externally owned account into a smart account, you can have a lot of great things like gas sponsorship. A lot of the people have this chicken and egg problem. At the end of the day, you need gas to be able to do stuff, but also if it's your first transaction, you probably don't have any gas in your account.
Dude, the number of times I've run into that problem where I get a stable coin in a wallet, but I don't have any gas to move it around or do anything with it, it is frustrating. Yeah. So you're saying users who receive money into their wallets, and let's say they don't have ETH for gas, can be able to move.
Can now be able to do stuff so you can create accounts for other people.
Most people probably have heard that, like, yeah, the user experience, that flow will be so much better. But the main thing that people or regular users might miss about this Pectra upgrade is that your validator stake is now increased to 2,000 ETH or whatever it is.
Yeah, you can throw up to 2,048 ETH into one validator.
You think most regular people might have 2,048 ETH?
Probably not regular people. However, maybe like staking entities, because now you can consolidate everything together. So everything kind of just works as if it was like one big machine almost. Instead of having 12 different machines run like 12 different validators and stuff, just congest the network. So now this allows you to compound everything together into one big fat staker and then be able to also help yourself bandwidth-wise, computationally, and help the network out as well.
Now, I know that might be great for like institutional stakers and stuff, but do you foresee that somehow impacting regular users using Ethereum without staking?
Well, we might be able to actually make Ethereum more efficient. So like larger staking operators like the Lido type validators will hopefully consolidate their collective of validators into one large validator, which would hopefully help save them in costs as well as part of their operating expenses to manage stakers. All right, let's go for another round.
Yeah. Badass. So aside from technology, the Ethereum Foundation recently underwent a major leadership structural change. The Ethereum Foundation, typically responsible for coordinating technical research and development, recently elected co-executive directors, Xiaowei and Thomas. Shout out to them. This is a pretty big change. You know, before it was Aya, one person being the executive director and two people. So I was just wondering, how does this change Ethereum operationally, culturally, strategically, and what does this change for you?
I think it's great that Ethereum is making big moves to be a little bit more bolder. You know, we're kind of underselling Ethereum quite a bit. We never really had dedicated marketing. We used to have problems with like layers of Ethereum not being able to talk to each other. And this was a huge problem. Obviously, there's a lot of things that happen outside of protocol that affect the Ethereum ecosystem. So it's always better when we're working together with people who are thinking not just from the protocol, not just from dApps, not just from infrastructure, but like somebody that has a huge bird's eye view of what's going on. So with that, you always got to have like a general, basically, who kind of knows what's going on around you and making decisions here and there. Obviously, it doesn't work like a dictatorship at the Ethereum Foundation. So it's a little bit more
counter to the point.
Yeah, it's a little bit counter to the point compared to like the way the military would do something. But it's very much like we all try to basically do our part. So we're having two co-directors now. Basically, we have Xiaowei, who is just amazingly great at knowing the protocol. She had been managing like the tests and stuff for quite a long time.
Shout out to Taiwan.
And also Tomas has a lot of great experience understanding the external part of the ecosystem. So, you know, he's obviously helped shape a lot of the proposer-builder separation. So proposer-builder separation, which is basically like outsourcing your block development to builders, kind of like MEV or MEV Boost you've probably heard of. Having someone who understands that ecosystem well helps us in turn at ChainSafe, but also the Ethereum community in general.
How does this change things for you in your day-to-day work?
So for me, my day-to-day work, I mean, it's just more avenues to talk to people and to get different perspectives. I think that's the most important thing about Ethereum is we actually don't really have like an aligned vision. Everybody sees Ethereum in a slightly different way. And that actually helps a lot. Yeah, it's a little bit detrimental to the velocity and the coordination aspects of doing things, but we always tend to think that this sort of decentralized governance will basically allow us to come to better outcomes because it's a collective mind of very smart people from very different companies with very different visions that will hopefully lead us into a middle ground and just be a truly decentralized protocol. And that way we destroy what we unfortunately built with TradFi 1.0.
If you were to rate this move out of 10 by the Ethereum Foundation, by the board of directors, by Vitalik, or whomever made this decision, what would you give this rating?
I would give it an 11.
We're gonna switch pieces. Phil's gonna show me how to load up his sniper rifle. What kind of sniper rifle is this?
So this is a Tikka T3X A1, which basically shoots a projectile called the 6.5 Creedmoor and is really effective for hunting and long distance shooting.
I'm so glad I have a military gun expert with us here. Okay, cool. So I'm gonna take a bullet. So I'm gonna load it up here.
Yep.
And then
slide the magazine in.
And this is bolt action.
Bolt action. So once you cock the action forward and lock it in place, it is ready to go.
Gotcha. And I'm aiming for the orange seal 100 yards away.
Yeah, get it right into the shoulder there. Line up with crosshairs. And then when you're ready, just give it a bang. Block proposed.
So sick. So sick. So how much does a rifle like this go for?
It's hard to say. I would give at least a couple $1,000s to something like this, Canadian.
How long have you been shooting for?
I basically held my first rifle when I was 16, when I joined the Army Reserve. By doing that, I got familiar with a lot of firearms and then started growing that hobby from there.
That's what's up. Don't fuck with Phil.
Well, just be confident. The thing with shooting is if you're confident with your tools and you take care of them, they'll take care of you. There's no way you can hurt yourself if you know what you're doing. Right?
So like you're meticulous with like the cleaning of everything, the operational, the safety aspect.
Yes, exactly. When it comes to responsible shooting, there's a lot of things that's just very much muscle memory. And you'll eventually learn how to approach any gun and know whether or not it's a safe weapon, how to make it safe. The great thing about shooting ranges is they provide you with all the tools you need. They give you a nice table to shoot from and stuff. They give you the targets, and then it gets a little bit more difficult when you go hunting or doing anything like that. But this is where you go to like get everything sighted in. So like taking a scope and aligning it with the bore of the weapon is not something that a lot of people generally know how to do. If these two things are off, it's going to be very difficult for you to make your shot.
It's just so funny because like I think a lot of people think of Bitcoiners as this hardcore laser eyes gun people, and yet you have someone here from Ethereum wearing a built on Ethereum hoodie is similarly hardcore as Bitcoiners.
When I first stumbled onto Ethereum, I kind of just looked at it as basically a Bitcoin 2.0 almost. It can do Bitcoin and more. And I've always seen it as that, as like a decentralized world computer where we all share the same global state of something.
Totally. Important public good to have, like the internet, really.
The big problem that we have is you can do a lot of things with Ethereum. You might even be able to do too many things. The simplicity of Bitcoin is actually what makes it very powerful and very valuable because it literally does one thing and it does it very, very well.
Totally. Dude, you're an OG of the Ethereum and Bitcoin ecosystem. You've been in the space for a very, very long time. As someone that has seen the industry and space grow from its nascent position to what it is today, like a multi-trillion, billion, trillion,
we're like 3 trillion now, maybe?
Many dollar amounts of an industry. What have you seen change the most and what hasn't changed fast enough?
It's a really good question. Okay, so some of the things that I've noticed that's changed over the years is that it's become a lot more mainstream, which isn't a bad thing. It just means the priority shifts on what is more important. So Bitcoin was obviously started by cypherpunks, and the whole journey up towards what got to Bitcoin is basically, a bunch of us rebellious type people who are just looking for an alternative to this centralized money printing system, fiat-based currency system that we currently have. We're sorely lacking more of those people now because it's just been so heavily financialized. TradFi is starting to get into things, and we're losing a little bit of that momentum of why we're here. And I think it's important for a lot of people to understand, like, why are we here? Why is Web3 a thing? What are we trying trying to accomplish here. We don't want to make the mistake of making TradFi 2.0. And that's what we want to try to avoid. We need more champions of that. That has unfortunately changed a lot, even since 2017, when the boom of the ICOs started coming. And then everything was just driven by money, more money. How about the values, the privacy, the decentralization, the fact that nobody can take what's yours, digital property rights that are inherently enforced not by one party. We're losing those people, and we need a lot more of them to show up. And when they develop their companies and their apps, they don't forget why we're all here. And then I guess what isn't changing fast enough, the perspective that some of these values that came from the cypherpunk movement, like transparency for the rich, privacy for the rest of us, for the rich and powerful, it's not happening fast enough. You can see transactions very much in the clear of everything you're doing in Ethereum. Imagine everyone being able to see how much money you have in your bank account, what you're doing with it. This is not the state of privacy that we're at yet. So we're very, very slow to adopt that. We're also very slow to understand that some altruistic methods of what makes the Ethereum ecosystem strong is more dominated by making money. People will do what they need to do to be good, rational economic behaviors, I guess, is what they would do. But that creates a lot of problems because important things like client diversity, even though you're not necessarily running the majority clients and you're not making extra money by, say, running a minority client, it makes it difficult to convince people why a minority client is much better and why you should be running a minority client over a majority client for the health of the network. But people are stuck in their ways. If something works, people don't necessarily prepare for the worst. And by having minority clients in your setup, it's kind of like buying insurance almost.
We're now gonna go change the targets, walking out into the field. Hopefully no one's got a loaded weapon.
No, we're safe.
Phil, I wanted to ask, because you were bringing up something important in your last answer. Why are we here? Why are we building in this space? Is it simply what you were talking about, preserving the values of self-custody, a decentralized money, etc.?
Yeah, so that's part of the reason. When you think about the money that you put into your bank, who really owns that money? It's on the books of the banks. They owe you money, but they shouldn't have to ask you questions about what you're doing with your money. It's your money, you own it. One day they could just stop and say, hey, I'm only gonna give you $500 a day. But no.
We're not, I don't think we're far away from that future.
So yeah, this is one of the inherent problems is ownership of your own wealth. And you're also part of this fiat financial system in which the government can just continuously keep printing money at their own will at the cost of things like inflation. Some of these concepts, I feel like hopefully many people will come to understand how current financial system works with fractionalized banking, or people doing trades with shares that don't exist. Naked shorts, where you're basically shorting stock that doesn't exist. GameStop.
Dumb money.
And it's just like, look, at the end of the day,
good movie.
You should have the ownership and the right to your own wealth and not have to depend on a third party, a bank, a teller at a bank, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, to be able to send your money around.
Fucking so dumb.
And the amount of fees that you have to pay just to get checks deposited, wire fees, like, no, this is 2025. You can send things through a blockchain for pennies on the dollar and as fast as 12 seconds on Ethereum.
That's why we're here. It's just so funny you say that because I've been recently writing a kind of a getting started beginner's guide. These are the things I also talk about a lot in my content, self-custody and how important that is as a public good for humanity. So I love that.
Freedom,
on that.
Financial freedom.
Yeah.
So Tim, down there, the 100-yard line, there's two targets.
Okay.
Yours is on the left, mine is on the right.
Okay.
First one to hit the center
First
wins.
one to hit the center. With this kind of shooting, should I be aiming a little up to anticipate a slight fall in the
So yeah, so the way that this scope is set up right now is it's set, or what we call zeroed for 100 yards. So right now, the center of the crosshair is going to match up where it lands.
I see.
There are these little notches in the crosshairs.
Yeah.
So as you go further, you will adjust your center point down. So it'll aim further up and then you'll be able to account for.
How many yards is each notch?
So 100 yards each.
So 100 yards each notch.
Yeah.
So if I'm shooting 200 yards out, then I aim.
Yeah, there's the crosshairs like this.
Yeah.
And then there's one notch underneath.
That's 200
That's
yards.
your center point.
I'm learning so much. Thank you. So you were talking about client diversity and stuff, which is very important. But for regular users on Ethereum, I don't know if they necessarily care about client diversity. So how do you reconcile this this need from a technical infrastructural standpoint to have client diversity, and this other thing where consumers don't necessarily care. They just want to use good apps. They just want to have a good user experience.
Yeah, that's the crux of it. It is very difficult, as most people running software like ours are going to be people who are node operators. People who are actually running the beacon nodes themselves, running their own Ethereum node, either for staking or for RPC endpoints. These are more of the target audiences that we need to convince to basically help diversify the client setup on our infrastructures. It's not really consumer facing, but you as a consumer always have power, right? If you advocate for your RPC providers to run different clients, as an example, like our client and Nimbus support like client APIs, which none of the other larger consensus teams are running. And if you want access to those endpoints, unless a provider is opening that up to you, the only other alternative you have is just to run our clients and be able to tap into those endpoints. Obviously, it's transitioning, and more client teams like Lighthouse are now implementing these APIs, but just gives you an example, you know, like the minority client teams can do a little bit more experimental type things because we can't on our own take down the network because we're such a small share of it. So there's a benefit for us to being able to move and break things easier than, say, some of the other client teams.
You guys are almost at like the forefront of innovation in terms of
yeah, exactly.
clients.
For the larger majority teams, they have to be very meticulous about what they put into their releases, because if they have greater than 33% share of the network, they could theoretically non-finalize the beacon chain from one client bug.
Danger zone. And we're about to get into danger zone right here. I'm going to hit this left side center target, and I'm going to beat this motherfucker right here. I'm just kidding. He's probably way better of an aim than I am.
If you want some shooting tips in regards to breathing, usually what you do is you take one full breath in, one full breath out, calm yourself, one full breath in, let out half of it, hold it, and start squeezing the trigger. Gotcha. It should scare you.
Can I move this slightly back?
Yes, you can. Wherever it's more comfortable for you.
Wow, this is hard. Holy shit. Oh, that was so close. I didn't get it though. I'm just a little bit off to the left.
Let's see where you're at. Ooh, just outside of the red. To demonstrate for the camera, here's the target. Tim shot literally right here. Didn't touch the red though. All right. Careful, might be a little hot. All right, Tim.
You're probably really good at this.
This is what happens when you play Counter-Strike growing up as a kid.
Dude, I play Counter-Strike too, man.
Were you the sniper? Were you the AWP
The AWP?
guy?
No, I was the MP5 or M4A1.
All right, Tim. Oh, very, very close.
Oh, you didn't get it?
No, so I did the same thing as you, but on the right side. Here's the target. I'm like right up here.
Oh, wow. So really close. Damn.
Really close.
All right, we're going to go take a look at the targets and see how...
Let's see how Tim did.
I mean, I think I did pretty damn well for my first time shooting in like 10 years.
How long did it take you to learn how to shoot? It should be that easy to interact with Ethereum. That's how quickly we need to be able to onboard people. If I can teach Tim here how to do a headshot or even like a proper center shot, you know, in like, what, 5 minutes, 10 minutes? That should be the longest time it takes to onboard somebody to Ethereum.
That's the perfect soundbite.
Absolute longest.
So what do you think we're doing wrong right now? Because obviously like onboarding in Ethereum is not taking someone 5 to 10 minutes.
A lot of it has to do with a bit technical. The feedback loop between dApp developers and protocol developers is not amazing right now. We're all very good at our respective levels, but we need to be better at interoping with each other. We need to be able to communicate what works, what doesn't work, and start developing things that make sense for the end user. So Tim, this was your target here. This was my target here. So you did, I think it was 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5. And then you did your headshot, which came out here. So you just scratched the dude's head right there. So you were on paper, we just couldn't see it. So here I am.
Look at this
shot
guy.
1, shot 2, shot 3. Eventually, you know what you're doing wrong, and it should always go towards the center. So this shot here, I noticed I was a little bit too high and a little bit too far to the left. I readjusted, and now I'm much closer to the circle.
Dude, that pattern is crazy. That's impressive.
You gotta learn from your mistakes. You know where you're doing wrong, and then you basically adjust for it.
I feel like these are lessons for life. It's almost like a misalignment or uncoordination between protocol developers and app developers. So how can we get closer? How can we align better?
Well, definitely we need to incorporate more people into the conversations. A lot of the times we try to collect consensus on what works and what designs are best so that we achieve the best outcomes for everyone. Doesn't always happen. There's always going to be some sort of disagreement on how we approach solving problems. And this is, I guess, the benefit and the trade-off of decentralized development and decentralized governance. Not any one of us can really change things, but the best you can always do is if you got an idea and you think it's better than the way we're doing things now, advocate for it. Propose it, develop the demos, makes it easier for people to understand. Put it in a test net, work with a client team like ours to implement new features.
Yeah, all right. This is our second time going for the head. Not quite close, very close.
The last 2 shots.
And then Phil, very close. Yeah.
50.
Let's go for 200. 200 is apparently the standard for Canadian Armed Forces. They have to be able to hit 200-yard targets.
You got to hit on paper.
You got to hit on paper to
qualify.
meet the standard
at a minimum, you got to hit the paper.
The Canadian military service. So we're shifting over to the 200-yard range. And yeah, this is sick. We're at the 200-yard range now.
All right, just go for the middle on your target. I'm going to take the right target.
Okay.
A little too high to the right.
But on paper.
It's on paper.
That's damn close.
Oh.
It's not red, but just right of red. Woo! Look at that.
Shit.
Dead center, 200 yards. That's Phil's. Not too bad. Not too bad.
Well done, Tim.
All right, so Phil and I were gonna do some skeet shooting with the shotgun, but unfortunately the skeet range. No skeet. Skeet
Just
range
shotgun.
was closed. So
Just fun shotgun.
we're gonna take out the shotgun and yeah, we're gonna do some fun shotgunning back here in this range. Now let's show us what you got, baby.
Okay, so here we have the Benelli Nova. It's part polymer and has a 24-inch 12-gauge barrel with it as well. You can get longer barrels, you can get shorter barrels, depends on what you're using it for. So now we have to attach the actual barrel to the shotgun. We'll just take this off. Okay, put the action halfway, stick the barrel in.
That's like a badass looking shotgun though.
Okay, it's in. Go to close her up, tighten it. Okay, good. Now we're going to test it to make sure it's good. Test is safe. Doesn't fire. Live. Fires.
Built on Ethereum, built for Ethereum.
So now we have a projectile that we're using called a slug. So it's just one big projectile, okay?
That'll do some damage.
So all you do...
So it's not going to be a scattered burst shotgun. It's going to be one hole.
Correct. You're going to see down there's just hopefully going to be one big hole on the sheet of paper.
We're going for the 50-yard target this time.
To learn how to operate it, you have the action open like so. You can actually just stick the 12-gauge bullet right in here and then cock it forward, just right here. You kind of just stick it in there.
Okay.
Cock it forward, and then it's ready to go. That's it.
It's live, baby.
Ready? 1, 2, 3. Woo! See that hole?
You hit that target?
Right at the bottom there.
Yeah. Oh, that's a big hole. Nice shot.
And that's the shotgun. Take the shotgun.
Shotgun. Okay.
Okay. And then gives you one. So you just stick it in, cock it forward, and it's ready to go. You're ready. That's it. So aim using this sight to the center silver beam lined up with the orange beam. Whenever you're ready, just shoot it. Woo!
And then cock it.
Cock it back. That's it. And you put it down.
That's got some kickback. All right. So when you look at Bitcoin's dominance in narrative, it's got a very strong narrative, and obviously everyone knows about Bitcoin. If we flip that over to Ethereum, what do you think is missing in Ethereum's storytelling?
The crux of it is everybody has a very different vision for Ethereum. Sometimes they're not always aligned. This is why it's sometimes very hard to come to consensus, and the narratives end up naturally shifting because of this. And there's just so much research, so much going on that you start working on something and it might even be obsolete 2 years from now.
That's the thing that I find so hard to follow.
Yes.
Ethereum.
Stuff like this doesn't change for years. Shooting, it's all very similar concepts. But when it comes to Ethereum specifically, there's usually a battle between ossifiers and the innovators.
So it's just like Bitcoin.
Yeah, it is. Except Bitcoin is much, much more ossified and much harder to change now. Ethereum still has a little bit of wiggleness to it. We're still changing the protocol in ways in which the research is really leading what Ethereum may look like a few years from now. We haven't ossified enough to have a very cohesive, singular narrative, which has been making it difficult for us to necessarily sell Ethereum because it's very general. It works for a lot of different things. It's a general computer. So the narrative is not as solidified as something like Bitcoin, where the use case is very clear. It's digital gold. Ethereum doesn't really have that sort of narrative yet. So it makes it very difficult for you to actually be able to ossify because there's so much happening. Things change all the time. And basically, it's just ongoing iterations of progression in technology such as ZK research, and also just like, the whole beam chain aspect of being able to utilize zero knowledge consensus at some point in time in the future. So Bitcoin's got us on the narrative, but we are pushing the technology forward. So new ways of doing things is what we're trying to get here with Ethereum.
Let's say crypto, Bitcoin, Ethereum, whatever, Solana, it all wins. In 5 to 10 years from now, what will that world look like with Ethereum, with crypto? How does this space win? And what does that world look like in your view?
It can look very different depending on what industries you're kind of focused on. When it comes to finance, we'll hopefully see much more open protocol usage, open finance, where everybody can be unbanked, or people don't have trouble accessing US dollars as part of their savings in fiat currencies. Having access to things like stable coins and open markets should hopefully allow for better capital allocations, being able to allocate the research, the resources into the right direction that hopefully creates protocols and apps that will change the way anybody around the world does banking or does finance. Hopefully, even at the same time, there are ways where we can improve things like the social layers. Maybe there's like reputation systems and stuff that we're more so utilizing. Things could be like WorldCoin, where there's like a unique biometric, perhaps to every human verified person on the platform. And having these sort of mechanisms where we preserve people's privacy, but at the same time, we can have better coordination platforms, like better passports, maybe better identification for proving something happened to you or you did something. So there's a lot of different things. Hopefully we have a more decentralized type Twitter at some point. Maybe some big artists will actually just utilize blockchain for their fan clubs, being able to sell NFTs and special VIP access to be able to do things. So the one thing that I'm really interested to see is the type of platforms and the type of dApps people will develop on Ethereum. It's our job at Protocol to make the lives of those builders easier so that they can have an easier way to have easier user experiences that will hopefully onboard more people into utilizing Ethereum as their basic hard finalization layer for digital assets of their user.
I'm going to fire around.
This is Tim taking out the competition.
That's got way more kickback, and it's also a bit harder to aim. What's next on the roadmap for Ethereum? What's the next big upgrade?
We're working on the Fulu hard fork, which is a combination of, you may have heard of it as Fusaka. So in combination with the execution layer and the consensus layer, it's called Fusaka. Osaka and Fulu together. The great thing about this is that we have to work together with the consensus and the execution layers together to do these hard forks. For us, the big thing is actually going to be PureDAS. So PureDAS is basically data availability sampling. And the way this works is instead of every node running through everything, especially if you're like a Raspberry Pi or if you're like some super computer, you're all still doing the same amount of work right now. So not everybody needs to carry all of the same information. Everybody carries little bits. And then you can use a mechanism to basically verify that all the pieces exist in the network, but you only carry like a small portion of it. Data, blobs, as you may have heard, like if you know the difference between blobs and blobs. But yeah, like we would basically have erasure coding on the blobs to basically doubles the size of it. But now you can only receive a portion of that to recreate what the blob was. Little piece here with this one peer, little piece there, this one peer. And depending on things like how many validators you're running, basically tell you how much data you need to custody. But the main idea here is that not everybody is going to be running through all the transactions and all the blobs. We trust that the network has all the information, but everybody does their part.
So that means like anyone with a good enough computer will be able to run a node on the Ethereum.
Yeah, less responsibility on the smaller providers and more responsibility on the people that can support distributing blobs and stuff like this.
So can you just notate the difference between a block and a blob?
So basically the block is part of the blockchain. And then you basically, with the chain of blocks, there's very particular information inside of the block that basically builds the blockchain. What the blobs are they're kind of in a way surrounding this block, and they're all connected to this block as like extra data. So the L2s submit their data and then into these blobs. So the more important distinction to note is that the blocks are forever, the blobs are not. So this is what allows Ethereum to have more throughput, because now you can put more information on chain that you only keep for a specific amount of time. So hopefully better storage requirements and better computation, bandwidth, everything like this. Everybody's kind of doing their part.
Thank you so much for taking the time with us today and pulling trig on Ethereum knowledge. Did you have any closing remarks? Anything you want to plug? Like, what's your socials? How can people follow you?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, protocol developers, or people might refer to them as all core devs, we're very accessible people. We are very knowledgeable in the protocol layer, but we need to get out of this bubble where protocol layer is kind of isolated, not talking to other people or getting feedback on like the work that we're doing to be able to make things happen. My request would be having more interop, better connections, people participating in all core devs outside of protocol developers. Likewise, protocol developers helping out more with like L2 interops and understanding the needs of the builder more is ideally what I'd like to have happen. So we get a better cohesion of the different layers. Hopefully we'll be a little bit more coordinated and will allow Ethereum to develop in the best way possible for not just protocol developers, but also for dApp builders.
And where can people find the all core devs call?
GitHub.com/Ethereum/PM under the issues is where all the different calls are, breakout calls. If you're focused on future implementations, if you want to join in on all core dev calls, there's usually like a live stream there that you can join. You can also watch all the recordings. Everything is public.
And how can people follow you on Twitter or on the socials?
Yeah, just follow me at PhilNgoz_. PHILNGO_.
All right, you want to get a shot off and close off the interview?
All right. So I'm going to put it in the tube this time.
Whoa.
So here, you can actually stick more rounds into it and do more shots.
Ah, so you could go.
You can do 2 shots together like this. So I'll add another one in.
2, 3. 2, 3? Yeah. All right, send it off for Ethereum and 90 seconds to crypto.
3 blobs incoming.
Thank you, guys. Peace out.
Peace. That's it.
These are the slugs. Who shot these two?
I don't know. There's probably like 3 shots in here. 1, 2, 3.
Sick.